Hello, Uranium friends. We are back with episode 14 of Uranium Talk, talking all things uranium. I am Jungle Funk from the Chart Guys, joined here by Chris, Red Devil. Chris, how are you?
Joe, I am fine. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. It's a freaking crazy week. Probably the heaviest fundamental week that I've ever been a part of in the markets, and everybody lived. So you love to see it.
We survived.
Yes, we survived.
Uranium
Um,
took a little bit of a beating today.
yeah, that monthly URA SPY ratio chart. We'll get into it later in the episode, but we were watching it and it started to come down, and now we're seeing that relative weakness a bit. But before we really get into the uranium stuff, let's talk about the broad market and what we ended up seeing there. So we had the FOMC got through that bullish reaction. We had the major tech earnings, got through that initial bullish reactions on all of that. But a little bit of weakness here into the end of the trading week. But the big news is this 2 week inverse head and shoulders that we've been watching has now broken bullish. So if you haven't gone back and watched that Christmas episode that we put out, it goes through why we got bullish down at the lows, and it's obviously been a nice month and a week since then. But now we have to see what kind of follow through do we get on this break. Right now, you can see here we don't have follow through, which could be seen as a little initial red flag, but ultimately it's just daily consolidation getting underway, and as long as this 12 EMA remains as support on the S&P 500, then the broad market is fine. If we lose this 12 EMA, that'll be the first red flag that perhaps we are not going to see follow through on this 2 week inverse head and shoulders. And as we talked about last episode, if that is to be the case, we then got to zoom out and watch for the potential of a monthly inverse head and shoulders. So what we get is yet to be seen, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it. And that's the
Yeah,
scene that we're working with right now.
the dollar is a little bit concerning. It's had quite the move in the past 2 days.
Yeah, let's look at that. So obviously 2 very bullish days here. We're up and over this daily 12 EMA that has been acting as resistance. And we got back up and over in January, the beginning of January, and didn't see follow through. But what makes this one a little bit different is if we look at gold, we can see gold is now reacting very inverse to the dollar and its move up. And that move back in January, gold didn't really budge. So that leads me to believe that this dollar move is a bit more believable, and our larger time frame context, we are looking for a monthly high or low here. So if the dollar sets a monthly high or low, that is going to be a headwind for the markets and indeed uranium as well. So that'll be something to keep a close eye on. And we know if the dollar bulls are going to see follow through, they're going to need a weekly trend change with a higher low and higher high. So, and they're still going to need a daily trend change. Right now, this is just straight off the low. So,
Yeah, just zoom out just a little bit on that daily. I mean, look at this. It's been the 12 EMA has been holding for a very long time. So
yeah. So if it gets up and over, we'll know we've got a character change there. And when we zoom out even a bit further to the quarterly chart, we're trying to bounce from that 12 EMA. So we'll see what we get there. Definitely something to keep an eye on. And if the dollar gets its monthly bounce underway, that would fit the thesis here for a potential monthly inverse head and shoulders on the S&P 500. So
yeah,
we'll be keeping an eye on that. And while we're talking things not uranium, we'll check in on XLE as well right now. And look at this week, very red on XLE, notable relative weakness. And when you compare that to the S&P 500, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So the same deal that we've been talking about, bigger picture, if the monthly 12 EMA remains strong, then XLE is fine. But taking note of this relative weakness, and we'll see what we get there, because again, uranium correlates with the energy sector generally. It certainly wasn't taken down by it this past week, but got to keep an eye on it. If we were to see XLE come down below this monthly 12 EMA, that'd be a bit of a red flag for the uranium space. So
Yeah, agree 100% on that. So
yeah,
we'll see.
so that's what we're working with in the broad market. But now let's get into the juice.
So we got juice, dude. We have a lot of things going on news wise this week, and we have some potential catalysts for next week. But let's talk about what happened this week. So URA did their rebalance. We've talked about this. I posted it up, and anyone in the space knows. SMR was added to the index. ANLI was added to the index. Fission 3.0 was added to the index. They took out Rio. They took out a couple of things, but I had a couple trades that I was doing as rebalance plays as well with SMR, but that's that deal. So we'll see how it shakes out next week as to where positioning is with URA. Sprott has been on a buying spree this week, right? They bought almost £1 million. They've raised $100 million in the past 7 days. So some new units were issued. They bought some pounds. That's good. Because we've been kind of seeing the dynamic that the spot price has been just trying to run away a little bit from Sprott, but they got into 1 to 2% premium over NAV and they were able to buy some pounds. Good stuff, so that's more uranium going into the uranium graveyard, so to speak, right? So it's pounds that are sequestered and can't come back onto the market. So that's good stuff. Sprott also opened up a new ETF this week, URNJ. So that's going to be a pure play based on just the junior miners. So all these little guys that are tough to buy, like for example, you want exposure to powered energy, and you're in the United States and you don't use an international brokerage. Well, you're paying $50 every trade for the F ticker. Guess what? You don't have to do that anymore. You can just buy URNJ. So, for trading around the core, it's actually a beautiful thing, right? So let's say you just make your core URNJ and then you pick some of the names inside of there and you want to juice your alpha a little bit and you trade around the core with the names that are inside of there, but your core is URNJ. So it's a nice thing to be able to play that in a sector. We're going to give it some time. It's got to get some volume. We got to see price discovery with it, all those good things, So we'll be keeping an eye on it for sure. I am without a doubt going to be positioning up in it and using it as my core for these OTC names. Yellowcake, the London equivalent of Sprott. Well, they've raised money as well. To the tune of, let me just see what the exact number is, which I'm going to get it wrong, and someone's going to probably correct me. We'll see. They raise funds. I don't even know where I have it written down. I have it written down. So 75 million, because they initially it was 50 million, and then they raised another 25 million today. So 75 million. Now they've got an offtake deal with Kazatomprom, KAP. They can buy pounds from them from a past contract at $48.90 a pound. So one would think they're going to execute that because I think it's like 51 or 52 bucks a pound right now on the spot. So more uranium that's going to go get locked up by Yellowcake. It's good to see them getting active, by the way, because they weren't very active. So we need those pounds to get sucked up. So good stuff. Poland is putting out to bid 76 new SMRs for the country.
Nice.
So we'll see. Those are going to get built up at some point. So that'll be more demand, more on the demand side. So, but the big news, okay, there's a couple of things, and these are potential upcoming catalysts for next week. So the United States House is going to be deliberating and voting on a bill on Tuesday to ban Russian uranium and oil. So there is some caveats in there as far as I don't know how they word it, but there's limits. So they can buy some, but there's wording in there. We got to see how the bill plays out. And remember, it's, just because the House votes on it doesn't mean it's all of a sudden passed, right? It's got to go through the entire legislative process. So in Europe, the Parliament there, the European Parliament has suggested once again for Russian uranium bans. I don't take this stuff overly seriously at the moment. The United States, um, have they gotten enrichment capacity yet? We don't really know for sure. They're working towards it. So do they really want to ban Russian enriched uranium if they don't have the capacity to do it themselves? So and Europe, Europe is its own animal in that respect too, but positive signs towards it. I'm not making any crazy trades based upon it, or I'm going to go all in because of it, but we follow it and we see how it plays out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it would be huge if it ends up making it all the way through,
Yeah, it'll be huge.
and ends up being a thing. But this would be step one, passing the House. So are they actually voting on it this
Yeah,
upcoming week?
Tuesday they're going to deliberate and vote on it. That's what it looks like. We're going to link it
Okay.
in. Segwit Capital, Art Hyde, he's the one that will link in his Twitter, and you can take a look at it yourself. He's got the links into the actual bills and everything. But listen, if you're following the space, like most of us, you know about this. We're just breezing over it, and we'll keep an eye on it. One other thing that we have to look out for next week is Cameco has their conference call and their earnings report on February 9th. That is usually a market moving thing as well. When I say market moving, I don't mean it's gonna rocket us up or kill us. We don't know. All right. So, but
It's
it
a
is
binary
something that
event.
it's something that the space pays a lot of attention to. Again, we've always talked about this. Cameco's the leader in the space. What they say and what they talk about is important to the space in general. So that is the stuff that's important. So it's big stuff. If I, if I see some further weakness on Monday, I might take some trading positions based upon these catalysts and sell into anything that happens and stop out and keep my risk kind of tight. So we'll see. I have to see how Monday goes first, but that's the news of the week, sir.
Right on. That's a good load there.
It is. It's
and and
it's we could talk about this stuff for 2 hours right now if we wanted to.
on the note of positioning up potentially to capitalize on some of these catalysts, it's definitely a bit on the riskier side, given that we're just now seeing some of our first signs of weakness in the space. So it's definitely an aggressive move. But like you said, if your risk is managed up and you're not just scaling into infinity with it, then that's the name of the game with trading. You manage your risk, you throw your hat in the ring, and see if you get a move in your favor. So
yeah, so I mean, I know you're a very technical chart nerdy dude, but trader psychology and market psychology and what they do, right? So wouldn't it make sense that if this is some sort of catalyst that somebody knows about, well, maybe things get pushed down into it, right? Maybe we flush out some people and run some stops just to get some FOMO buyers back into this catalyst. Don't know. I'm going to see how Monday goes. I can't really make a determination on how I'm going to act yet until I see what happens on Monday.
yeah, and the broad market too will certainly have a role involved as well. Like if we're to see that monthly inverse head and shoulders start to shape up and get more notable weakness in the broad market, then any uranium entries are going to be working against the current a little bit. So
yeah, so just think about this. I mean, we've been doing this for what, 13, 14 weeks now?
yeah,
Right. So how much bullish news has been flowing in every week? And how has the price action responded to that? Not very well, right? So is this just another one of those big bullish things that the charts and the price action doesn't care? We'll see.
Yeah, at the end of the
That's how you have to
day,
play it.
the technicals have been so clean on the sector, and we've got such nice clarity between our EMA riders and larger time frame, most likely scenarios playing out. Like everything is moving really nicely, and with that, uh, it seems to be trumping any news or catalysts or this or that. Like obviously, catalysts can provide fuel to the fire, but how the space has been is if the technical setup isn't there, it doesn't really care about the catalyst. So obviously
So
that can
are
change at
you
any point. But
are you saying that they're not just squiggly crayon lines?
it's some folks would certainly like to debate that, but
Yeah.
it's just about probabilities. That's all this is. It's just probabilities and managing risk, and that's that. So let's get into some of these uranium charts here. Get the charts back on the screen. So this URA SPY ratio that we talk about at the beginning of every episode, it's looking like we might have a monthly lower high shaping up here. We'll go right into the daily, and as has been the guide since back here, we're saying daily 12 EMA is the guide for this. And as soon as we came down through that daily 12 EMA, we can obviously see what happened there. And this just means that the S&P or that the uranium space is weaker than the S&P 500. So we've got weekly consolidation underway. When we look at the weekly, we're right on these EMAs. So that was the deal. If we lose the daily 12 EMA, then eyes are on the weekly 12 EMA. If we hold the weekly 12 EMA, then the monthly chart still looks okay. But if we come down below these, then it will be looking like our monthly lower high is shaping up. And why this is important is if we go over and look at this URA SPY ratio compared to the CCJ chart, these X's are color coordinated and marked on the same spots on these charts. And you can just see that CCJ tops out when this ratio chart tops out. It bottoms out when this ratio chart bottoms out. So we have supreme clarity here, and it's looking like we may have another top shaping up here. So as CCJ still sits up nicely at the highs, got to be cautious that perhaps we see a monthly lower high here, which is the most likely scenario because we have a monthly equilibrium here as well. So
Yeah,
we're
and
up.
we've talked about this a bunch of times. We didn't really want to see this thing ripping through resistance anyway, right? Because it
Yeah,
was running so hot. We'd rather see some more consolidation so it has a little bit more strength to break these monthly resistances.
exactly. We talk about this principle and in technical analysis and trading in general that you don't want to break resistances when you're extended because it's a lot less likely to see follow through. So uranium bulls want to see this rejection. They want to see this thing get as tight as it can possibly get so that when it breaks, it's got more gusto, more energy built up and sees more follow through. So in my opinion, this is a good thing. Just
Gusto?
keep, yeah, gusto. You know,
Gusto or gusto?
gusto, tomato, tomato, potato,
Uh-huh.
potato.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So yeah, we'll have to watch this consolidation. Really, if we see any more red here come next week, then that will greatly increase the odds that this monthly lower high is shaping on up there. So that's the ratio chart. We'll go in and look at some of the individual names. U.UN came down in a big way today, negative 4.13%. So that doesn't quite have our weekly consolidation underway, but if we break the low of this week, next week, that would be the case. And all eyes will be on this 1566 weekly higher low as we look to see, do we continue to tighten up on the monthly here, or can bulls keep the move going and try to get up and through this 1794? So if the ratio chart comes down through weekly 12 EMA, then odds will increase that U.UN is going to tighten up on the monthly as well.
Yeah, so
So
that drawdown today on U.UN is going to be taking them well below premium to NAV. So probably not going to be seeing any pound purchases today. We'll see, but
yeah,
they're probably going to be about 3% below NAV.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how that develops from here, especially if we do end up seeing monthly consolidation. So, uh, individual names. So we know the sector's weakening. URA and URNM came down a good bit more, but CCJ continues to be relatively strong. And in a bubble, there's nothing wrong with this daily chart. And we'll be watching the daily 12 EMA. If we pull back down below the 12 EMA, then that will be the first sign that maybe we are getting a monthly lower high shaping up. But even then, that would just be weekly consolidation. And we really haven't seen any legitimate weekly consolidation since the December 19th low down here. So consolidation's part of a healthy chart. It sucks for bulls when it goes on, but it's necessary, because if you just continued on up here, it would be so unlikely to break resistance just as is, and even less likely to see any follow through after a break. So we'll have to track consolidation, see if it remains healthy. Bulls want to stay above this weekly 12 EMA. And for now, they're still looking for a daily higher low. Anything over this little dinker here at 2610 would be one. But if we lose the low of this week, next week, that weekly consolidation would be underway regardless. So 2722 is that level. Some other
Little
names.
wicky, that big upper wick on that weekly.
Yeah, definitely looking like we've got some weekly consolidation looking to shape on up here, especially when you see some of the weakness elsewhere in the sector, and obviously that ratio chart coming down as well. So other names not holding on quite as well as CCJ. We had a little higher high without follow through on UEC right into consolidation, and now we're looking down to 388. So if that is lost, we'd have some weekly consolidation underway here. And we just got to keep in check that we're still range bound on all of these names. We're up near resistance. So, really, the most likely scenario is probably to keep on tightening up. So, it's been a great move off the low, but perhaps time for bulls to consider hedging. And on that note, Chris, you posted in the chat room today, you got some puts on something to kind
Yeah,
of hedge up a little bit.
I bought some URNM March 17th 31 strike puts.
Okay.
Nothing crazy.
Just a little, just neutralize yourself out a little bit.
Neutralizing my core holdings on URNM. So that's all they're doing. And the option chain isn't that great. So the only way it's going to work is if we get a good, strong pullback. Otherwise, it's just protection. And it was dirt cheap protection. So it's fine.
Yeah, and that's just part of the system of maintaining a core and maintaining exposure in a sector. Like when you have moves, well, we'll just go to URNM. I mean, this is nearly 30% off of the low. Like that's a huge move, and if it's gonna pull back and stay in this like broader tightening range and pull back into the 32s or something like that, why not capitalize on some of that movement as opposed to just sitting in one position and watching your P&L go up and go down and go up and go down. You obviously
Yeah.
need to have some understanding of technical analysis, how the charts move to a degree. You don't need to be a total whiz with it to protect yourself, but some protection can help keep you in the game mentally. Obviously protects your capital, but it's psychologically tough to just oscillate around and up and down and up and down. The emotions tend to wear on you. And then what happens when you take that emotional wear and tear is then when you do break out, you're like going to be quicker to lock it in because you're just at that point gun shy and a little damaged. So it's good to protect for your mind and for your capital.
So just on that one, Joe, real quick, throw me the screen.
Yeah, let's get you on. Oh no. Let's see. I have
Did you lose me?
bungled it. No, I showed my
Yeah. So
background.
listen, here's my rationale. I mean, there's still a gap to fill here, right? And I'm looking at this daily pivot, to be quite honest with you, as where I'm going to be thinking about making some, re-adding into a trading position again. right at the 200-day moving average, right at the gap fill area, but there's not a lot of support underneath. So yeah, I might hit this here right at this 23% fib and this 200-day moving average, but I'll stop out pretty quick on those traders, but I will still have those puts that are going to be hooking me up. So if it gets down past this gap and all this support area down here, well, the puts are really going to start printing then. So I'll be fine. But that was just it. Since we brought it up, I just wanted to say what my rationale was there.
I
You can
like
go
it.
ahead.
I like it. That sounds good. So yeah, we're going long on time, so I'll just get through here quickly.
As
We
usual.
do have weekly consolidation underway with the break of the low of last week. So now we're watching that 3360 level that you pointed out there. And like everybody else, weekly 12 EMA is the bigger picture guide. If that's support, then bulls are fine. But big old volume on this reversal candle. We'll see what kind of follow through bears get on it. NXE, this is a bit of a red flag for the space. So we know on the monthly we were watching this double top up here, and bulls reconfirmed this monthly uptrend, but obviously no follow through at the moment. Now we're back below that key resistance. So weekly consolidation not quite underway here yet. We can see we've got the weekly 12 EMA support. If we lose 436, then that would kind of increase the redness of the flag, if you will, here on an XE. And that would be pretty likely to lose this level if we're to see CCJ stay within its monthly equilibrium. So UUUU holding on pretty well compared to peers, just below these key resistances, 797. And if we break the low of this week, next week, that'll be weekly consolidation underway. And you guessed it, going to be about the weekly 12 EMA. If that remains support, it will be healthy. If that's lost, then we'll be looking at like a 2-week equilibrium here, continuing to tighten on up.
We're going to keep saying it, but the uranium commodities in general love to ride EMAs. Uranium loves to ride EMAs. So figure it out. Put your 12 EMA in there, check on the different time frames, see where it's riding the most, and that's a spot that you should be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, it's a fantastic visual guide, and it can also like really help hone in entries. Like looking at CCJ here, I mean, aggressive bulls, knowing that maybe a monthly lower high is going to get set, so you don't want to go full Yahoo with it. But aggressive bulls are going to be looking for a trade off this 12 EMA. Eventually, we'll bog down through. Whether it's here or whether it's after another leg up, who knows? But that, again, back to what we were saying earlier, no one knows. No one's ever going to know. And anyone who tells you that they know is being foolish.
They're giving technical analysis a bad name.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. And that's why we catch so much hate as technical analysts, because there's a lot of people out there trying to pass it off as something that it's not. And it's not anything about knowing what's going to happen. It's about probabilities. And if we're to get into hourly oversold conditions, looking for a daily high or low, testing the 12 EMA, then that's a situation where you then zoom into the 5-minute chart and look for a 5-minute trend change to then put some money in on it, put your stop below the low, and see if you can get enough follow through to sell a portion, get risk free. And then if it is the daily high or low and we do continue on, you got a position. If it's not, then you stop out. That's the game. No one knows. No one's ever going to know. And we just got to try to safely see what plays out. So that's all I've got this week. I know I went on there. Chris, you want to give a quick update on your...
Not a bad job there, buddy. You're doing better.
I'm trying to work on my brevity. You might not be able to tell.
All right, so I posted these, but LEU, yeah, give me the screen. I posted these. I hit my target on LEU. I think it was 42.50 or whatever it was. That target was hit, so I'm out of this swing on that. I will be looking back down here, this area, for potential reentries. I have my alert set. We'll see what happens there. It's also kind of close to the weekly pivot over here. So that's why I like to get an early look at it. But we still have this EMA stack. So yeah, so I'm out of that. LEU, I'm out of completely at the moment. SMR. Do I have that up? No, of course not. So yeah, SMR, look at this craziness. So I did post that as well, right? So this was my little rebalance play. I sold half. So, and which, if you recall, my stop loss is below 1040. So the other half has not stopped out. But if and when it does, it will be a completely break-even trade because I trimmed that half up top here. Okay. So that one's still going in a half position. My stop loss hit on URNM. We talked about that. And we talked about the puts that I entered. And that's it. My video that I put out on the Global Atomic and Encore financings, I detailed my trades there. So again, you could go back to that video and look at that. But I still have an order out on Global Atomic for my 10 to 15% below the financing price. The one thing I did do today, and I do not suggest this for anybody, I bought, or yesterday or today, one of the two, I bought 100 shares of URNJ just to track. Like I have to have it kind of, it's just the way I operate. I got to have it in my account to keep an eye on. So I'm just tracking that. I do not suggest anybody look at this. You can make entries, but we don't know where it has not gone through price discovery yet. So for me, it's just a tracker. I'm keeping an eye on it, and that's it. That's it.
All right. Well,
that's all.
Hot dang.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
So yeah,
I guess this is farewell.
Big catalysts next week, possibly, and they could go in either direction, right? This could be a sell the news for all we know. So we're just going to keep an eye on it, and we'll post up what we see and what we hear, and maybe I'll tweet out if anything as far as what I'm doing on it. But that's it. Over and out.
Yeah, over and out. Everybody, protect as we're seeing first signs of weakness in a long time.
So remember,
a really nice move.
This is a potential spot where we get a momentum shift. We're not saying it's happening yet, but there's a little bit of a flag for us to keep an eye on things. That's it.
Yep. Simple as that. All right. Have a great week, everybody, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Peace.